in regards to self-care, or more rather coping mechanisms, I think it's hard to implement that. Now I remember, is if you're not aware of what's happening. Like when you're angry, like you said, it takes a lot of work to stop in the middle of that intense moment because you're in that fight or flight mode.
Yeah.
So the coping mechanisms are good. Like, how would you start teaching someone to become self-aware in that intense moment?
I think for that, it's like all of the kind of like psychoeducation you can give somebody before the event happens, right? Like, you talk to them about, maybe you can sit and talk about like what first of all, like, do you have any coping skills or coping mechanisms? And then once they are able to identify those, okay, so these are the things that you can go to. These are your go-tos whenever you feel angry, upset, frustrated, anxious, etc.
These coping mechanisms are either productive or not. Like, sometimes some people cope by punching a wall.
Yes. Okay, so identifying healthy coping mechanisms. Okay. I will, specify. So yes, identify healthy coping mechanisms. And then from there, it's, I think it's more about finding what works for that person.
Yeah.
Because the therapist or whoever, counselor is helping them in that, they could easily say, well, this is what to do.
Yeah.
But it's more of a question of like, so how can you make this work? Right.
Yeah.
This is your life, right? As the client, like,
so
they need to,
now they
need to figure out. Yes. And if they're motivated enough for change or wanting that, to change, switch their habits up, then, like you said, if they have the motivation to do it themselves or willing to dive into that, then that choice is up to them.
Yeah.
So really, it's just kind of offering.
Yeah.
What can you do? How can you implement this? How do you know? Also, another great thing about dance movement therapy is identifying where in the body you feel what you're feeling. So, right. So, like, your feelings also affect your body, right?
Yeah.
Psychosomatic symptoms come up. Maybe a lot of kids, when they're younger, they're like, oh, Mom, I have a stomach ache. I can't go to school. They might actually be sick. But the reason for that, like the underlying reason, is because they're anxious about, some bully trying to take their lunch or something like that. And so, really, it does manifest a stomach ache because you're feeling that way. And so,
wow.
What I've done in the past is during groups, like if they were activated or something, felt triggered, they identify the emotion and then identify where in the body do I feel it.
Yeah.
I'm anxious. Well, what happens when you're anxious? Well, my heart is pounding really fast. That's an indicator of I'm about to get really anxious right now. Or, your palms get sweaty when you're angry, right?
Because how you bring it up, because I'm like, now I'm thinking about I know which parts, like mine's my chest, and my head gets really pressured, and I can feel my heart pounding.
Yeah.
That's like the main parts. I can feel my head pounding right now, just having to think about it. So
ooh, come back. Woosah. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I will add this. Something I learned from one of the therapists I've worked with. I catch the time being like 111, 222, 333, 444, 555, all of those times. I see them all the time for some reason. I don't know why. But every time I catch it, I always take a moment to stop whatever I'm doing and take 3 deep breaths.
Huh.
And it's my way of just being like so present and in the moment.
It's almost like, oh yeah, that's a nice little
hack. Throughout the day, I'm like constantly knocking off things on my to-do list, running errands, working, like you're moving, all these moving parts. But, if I look and I'm constantly looking at the time too. So when I see the time, I'm like, oh, like I gotta take this time to take my 3 deep breaths. And I can tell when I'm rushing it too. And I'm like, oh, I'm like in a hurry. I need to get this done. But it's like this discipline to have.
It's like that. I'm thinking like the Grand Master telling their student to like slow down.
Yes.
There's no need to rush.
Yeah.
But yeah.